Hi, I'm Pat Kiernan. This is Pat's Papers. We go through the nation's newspapers every weekday morning to thin it out, to cut through the clutter, to give you some of what we think is most relevant for you to read in the morning. Here's some of what we found for you today. Starting in the West today with the San Francisco Chronicle, some experts are puzzled by Barack Obama's selection of Leon Panetta to lead the CIA. Panetta has limited direct experience in either intelligence or foreign policy. According to reports, Panetta was not actually seeking the job. Also on page 1 of the Chronicle, lawyers in favor of Proposition 8 released their response to the state's Attorney General. Jerry Brown had urged the California Supreme Court to invalidate the ban on same-sex marriage that was passed by voters. But lawyers in favor of the ban say Brown is trying to get the court to exercise power it never had. From Silicon Valley, the Chronicle reporting on the answers that are leading to a lot more questions about the health of Apple CEO Steve Jobs. There's so much interest in this because he's seen as the visionary that the company can't do without. The man behind the iPod and the iPhone, he finally explained his weight loss yesterday, saying a hormone imbalance has been robbing his body of proteins needed for good nutrition. Now, thankfully, Steve Jobs wears pretty much the same thing every time he appears on stage in public, so there is a handy series of before and after photos published here. There's a similar set of photos in the Wall Street Journal this morning on its front page. The caption there says he provided so few details that his disclosure raised new questions. To Alaska, the Anchorage Daily News, a big photo feature on the front page of the National Cross Country Ski Championships that have been on hold because the weather in Alaska has been so cold. And there's a story about the Levi Johnston job trouble. Levi's the young man who got Sarah Palin's daughter pregnant. In all of the reporting about the Palin baby, it was revealed that Levi is working in an electrical apprenticeship program in the oil industry. He is doing so without the necessary diploma. The 18-year-old has decided now to sidestep any controversy by quitting that job and going back to school. Speaking of political kids, the Obama girls on the front page of the New York Daily News today. You know, my wife always complains that she has a great deal of trouble getting the kids pulled together and out the door in the morning for school. One of the perks I get for getting up at 3 a.m. is that I have no part in that. So I wonder today, would it be easier or harder to get the kids ready for school if you have the Secret Service involved? Sasha and Malia Obama had the Secret Service and a photographer in tow as they headed off to their new school in Washington yesterday. Plenty of other coverage from Washington in papers from across the country. One interesting bit of trivia is on the front page of the Statesman Journal in Salem, Oregon. Barack Obama isn't quite the youngest president, but he is going to be working with the oldest Congress. The average age in the House is 57. The average senator, 63 years old. Both of those numbers are the highest ever. As the kids were in school, Barack Obama was on Capitol Hill. The Kansas City Star says top Republicans believe Obama is sincere in his invitation to have Republicans help to craft the proposed $800 billion economic stimulus package. I wanted to check in with the Minnesota papers today with news that Al Franken is the official winner after the recount in the Senate race. In Duluth, the headline is "Next Stop, the Courts," with the expected challenge from incumbent Norm Coleman. In the Pioneer Press, the headline is "It's Franken officially." And from the Star Tribune, it says, "I work for you now," although Al Franken said that as he acknowledged that he'll probably have to endure a legal challenge before it's all settled. Also noted here, the story at the top of the page about the death of Carl Pohlad, the 83-year-old billionaire best known for his ownership of baseball's Minnesota Twins. This is National Radon Action Month in Pennsylvania's Sun Gazette this morning, a warning that radon causes about 20,000 lung cancer deaths every year. Officials believe many of those cases could be avoided if people had their homes tested. A radon test kit costs between $15 and $30. The Wisconsin State Journal reporting today that the city of Madison had to write a check to cover the cost of its recycling program last month. Since 2002, that program has always paid its own way. It's even made a little money. But demand for recycled products has dropped so much recently that prices have plunged. A ton of newsprint that used to fetch $150 is now worth only about $12. President Bush will create 3 new marine national monuments in the Pacific Ocean today. The Washington Post says this will safeguard the areas from oil exploration and commercial fishing. The story says, though, that this underscores a contradictory environmental record for the president. He has resisted things like greenhouse gas restrictions, but by the end of his term he will have protected more ocean than anyone else. One more note about the Bush family. As reported in the San Francisco Chronicle, the nation's first cat, India Willie Bush, died on Sunday. She was 18 years old. The statement says the president, Mrs. Bush, Barbara, and Jenna are deeply saddened by the death of their cat. Roland Burris has set off for Washington. The Chicago Sun-Times reports today whether they're ready for him or not. He's on his way. The Illinois Secretary of State, Jesse White, has refused to sign off on the nomination by the scandalous governor for the Senate seat vacated by Barack Obama. An opinion piece on this topic in the LA Times says Senate Democrats are on weak constitutional ground in trying to deny a seat to a properly selected individual. Erwin Chemerinsky argues that Roland Burris meets the constitutional requirements for his appointment and says the appointment was also made by a governor who, at least at the moment he made the appointment, was in legitimate power. On the front page of the New York Times, the update from Israel on the military action. The story says humanitarian relief systems in Gaza are functioning poorly because of the inability to move around. The lead editorial in the Times is on this topic as well. The paper begins with an overall expression of support for the Israeli action, but says there is a risk that Israel miscalculates and goes too far. A perk of the rich may be vanishing. Private jet travel may not be so easy if the TSA gets involved. The New York Times says the private jet industry is pushing back against federal efforts to make security procedures for private jets similar to the slow process for boarding a commercial flight. As the story says, one of the biggest conveniences of private jet travel is the speed with which passengers can get on the plane and get off the ground. The New York Post has some fun at the expense of the French Navy today. The story calls them brie-loving seamen who last scored a significant victory at sea in 1884, but yesterday they successfully stopped a gang of a dozen Somali pirates. Also in the New York Post, some disturbing medical news. A 55-year-old man in Britain has hearing loss because he golfed a lot. At least that's what his doctors think. He used a titanium driver for at least 3 rounds of golf every week. Doctors think that made such a loud thwack sound that it caused permanent hearing loss. They are the 6 who will sizzle. The New York Post looking at 6 relatively unknown musical acts, all with albums due in the next 6 months. Free MP3s from all 6 are available at the nypost.com website until the end of the week. It's a terrible review in the Washington Post for the premiere of NBC's Superstars of Dance. Sarah Kaufman writes, "You'll need a strong stomach and preferably an empty one to watch the rest of this series." The program takes a team of assorted dancers from each of 8 nations and pits them against each other. Finally, late heroics in the Fiesta Bowl last night. A pair of Texas seniors sealing the deal with 16 seconds to play. Texas beats Ohio State 24-21. The Dallas Morning News has quarterback Colt McCoy on the front page in the post-game celebration. And those are just some of the headlines this morning. Thanks for joining us for Pat's Papers. Go to patspapers.com, scroll down on the main page, and you will see links to the individual newspapers where these stories were published. You can read them for yourself there and read more from any one of those newspapers.